Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Pod.
Hello and welcome to Filibuster here on the Nerd Party Network. I'm Lee Hutchison, and joining me as ever is my co-host of the big announcements as always, Dallas King. Dallas, how are you? You're joining us from cold Salt Lake and Sundance, I think.
Virtually, yes. Well, I do have a Sundance puffer jacket, so I wear that because it's sunny in Aberdeen, but it's still on the cold side. So I can wrap up warm and pretend like I'm, in Mormon country. But it has to be. It's fair to say I'm pretty exhausted. even though I'm not on the time difference, I'm exhausted.
Well, it's one of those ones, and I guess you could have been exhausted by the movie that we're about to talk about today, and that is that we finally both had the chance to see and experience Babylon. But first, Dallas, what was your take and reaction to the Academy Award nominations yesterday? I didn't have any plans to actually watch it, but a meeting I was in finished quite a bit early, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to stream it. And I must admit, I was pleasantly surprised by the spread and maybe one or two of the nominations, but I think it went pretty well for a lot of the films, I think.
Yeah, no, I was taking my cats to the vet for their annual vaccinations, pointless bit of information that most people listening to the podcast don't need to know. But it meant that by the time, thankfully, it was a short enough appointment, they're totally fine, that I was able to get back in time, just pretty much in a couple of minutes, for the live reading of the Oscar nominations. Yes, everyone has their opinion on the Oscar nominations. Every year it's the same sort of thing, great for this film, bad for this film, who got snubbed, who got picked, and all that sort of stuff. And it has to be said, while watching the nominations, I had the feeling of, hey, this is actually a pretty decent turnout for a lot of films. They seem to be getting a lot right. And then it's not until you then go back in, because I think I was kind of in a daze between Stephanie Sue getting nominated for Everything Everywhere All at Once, when all the talk leading up into the major sort of precursor awards and stuff was Jamie Lee Curtis being nominated, and anyway, she's someone, apparently it was her time for an award and all that, but I think anyone who watches Everything Everywhere All at Once can't help but be blown away by Stephanie's performance. And so I did a massive shout in my empty house when that nomination came out, and then I was pretty much in a daze until Paul Mescal got nominated for Best Actor in a leading role for After Sun. So After Sun is now an Oscar-nominated film, which is fantastic. So it was kind of a blur in between there, and yeah, so I didn't click initially that of course there was the Andrea Riseborough, the sort of week-long campaign of getting her mates to do Instagram posts about To Leslie, and it worked. She got in, and everyone was like, "Holy crap, I can't believe this!" But then it wasn't until afterwards you sort of noticed that who missed out on that, and also having seen The Fabelmans, it was her choice to run for Best Actress in a leading role, but having watched The Fabelmans, Michelle Williams, that is a supporting role. I'm sorry, every character apart from Sam Fabelman is supporting Sam Fabelman. So yeah, that's my opinion. But it means that like Viola Davis and Daniel Deadwyler, who was superb until missed out on what everyone assumed was pretty much a lock sort of nominations for those. So yeah, ups and downs. No women in Best Director this year, although someone apparently argued, well, there was a woman won the last 2 years in a row, and I was like, oh yeah, Chloe Zhao for Nomadland, yeah, and then I was like, who won last year? This is the problem, Coda, of course, I say infamously won, but I couldn't even remember that it did, and then it was a Jane Campion one for Power of the Dog. I think that kind of encapsulates how maybe lackluster either the ceremony and the campaign was, or just how, I guess, in flux last year was in coming out of the COVID and the pandemic and the closure of cinemas and stuff like that. I can't really remember anyone who won last year. So, I'm looking forward to this. We've got, what have we got? We've got Everything Everywhere All at Once. leading the way with 11 nominations. I think it's fair to say that, given that and Banshees of Inisherin both got 4 acting nominations, that they are probably the 2 films to beat this year. I think everyone, is pleased that Everything Everywhere All at Once managed to get there, considering it was released all the way back in May. It's managed to maintain that momentum, especially through the critics' prizes. Everyone thought it might sort of stop there, but it has pushed through into the main award race, which is fantastic. All Quiet on the Western Front had a great showing, despite everyone thinking that Netflix weren't really pushing it, but clearly they got screeners into enough places that it led the BAFTA nominations and has done very well here. I'm personally excited that Brendan Fraser's managed to get a nomination, stuff like that. But I think one of my favourite moments from the announcements, despite the fact that there was no appearance from Megan, because Alison Williams was doing the nominations, was I think Riz Ahmed reading the nominations for, was it Best Live Action Short, which meant that Riz Ahmed uttered the line, "My Year of Dicks," followed by some, yeah, and then someone going no comment, and then something about an ostrich in time. It was like a really long title involving an ostrich, which caused much laughter and sniggering from the childish audience who were live in person at the nominations. Overall, I'm happy. I will be pushing and backing Paul Mescal. Of course, he's not going to win it. It's going to be Austin Butler or Brendan Fraser or Colin Farrell. It's one of those 3. But it's one of those. It's nice to be nominated. You can go. You can have fun. But will he invite Frankie Corio to be his +1 to the Oscars? Who knows?
With no Phoebe Bridgers, I think that could be a given.
Yes, no. Is Bo Burnham a member of the Academy? That would be quite interesting.
He must be after 8th grade, I would imagine.
Yes, no. So yeah, no, that could be an awkward red carpet moment ahead. But yes, no. Overall, and of course, I'm sure we'll be doing a bit more of a deep dive on the next episode of the A24 project, because A24 came away with 18 nominations. A superb result for them after a couple of years where it didn't really work out. But it's spread across many films. I think many people have criticised A24 for not really being able to campaign beyond sort of one film, and it's worked out for this way. They got 8 out of the 20 acting nominations. And if Angela Bassett wasn't the front runner in Best Supporting Actress, there would be a scenario where A24 could sweep every single acting category, with Michelle Yeoh, Brendan Fraser, Ke Huy Quan, and then either Hong Chow, Jamie Lee Curtis, or Stephanie Hsu. So it will be a big night for A24, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it more on the next episode of the A24 project, which you can also download.
And it wasn't the only announcement yesterday as well, because Glasgow officially announced sort of their lineup for the coming month. So I think you were on the announcement call. Unfortunately, I was dragged into a meeting. How's it looking for I guess the biggest festival in Scotland right now?
the default biggest festival in Scotland. Well, I mean, the fact that it's still alive and thriving is a great thing. Back to full in-person screenings. After the last couple of years where it's been sort of a bit hit and miss. They went completely virtual, and then it was looking like they might have to resort back to virtual, and they sort of did a hybrid mix. But yes, no, it's looking good. They're focusing on sort of the smaller independent films and stuff like that this year in terms of the lineup. But there's going to be, it opens with Girl, which I am about to watch this afternoon as part of Sundance, and we'll close with Polite Society, which I have watched already, and we'll give a verdict when we do a Glasgow Film Festival episode. But it's sort of pouring through, because most of the films are maybe slightly unknown titles. It's going to be that fun thing of getting a hold of the brochure, getting a highlighter out. What appeals to me? Is it a director? Is it a synopsis? Is it just a theme, a location, an actor, an actress, and then finding those hidden gems, and finding a new film to be really excited about. I haven't found that film yet at Sundance. I'm hoping it's coming. I'm looking for my next Censor or my next After Sun, which will become my entire personality for the rest of the year. But I'm very excited, and I know you've got a ticket for the Under the Skin screening, 10-year screening with a live orchestra score by Michael Levy. I'm very jealous that I'm in New York and not able to see that.
And I'm very jealous that you're in New York and
Oh, come now. But I'm very excited. Probably, sadly, I don't know. It's my personal highlight of the film festival is a 30th anniversary screening, which shocked me. It makes me feel really old. For So I Married an Axe Murderer, one of the greatest underrated comedies of all time, and the first appearance of Mike Myers' Scottish voice, which then appeared in Shrek and Fat Bastard and All the Likes with Stuart Mackenzie. So I believe that's going to be in a comedy club with some poetry and incredibly large cappuccinos. So I'm very, very excited for that one. And yeah, I'll be going through the program and finding out what else I'm going to. There's a couple of Mark Cousin documentaries about Hitchcock. And they're doing an anniversary screening of The Birds as well and stuff. But it is, of course, Alan Hunter, co-director of the Glasgow Film Festival's last edition of the festival. He's retiring after 17 years at the festival. So, Alan, thank you for everything that you've done. I've always enjoyed your introductions. I mean, himself and Alison managed to somehow introduce every single screening at the festival, but he always does the greatest introductions for the free classic retrospective screenings that they do at the GFT in the mornings, and he will be sorely missed. But I'm hoping that this will be a great final festival for him as well.
Yeah, so let's dive into our big review of this week, and that's Babylon. So from writer, director, and pariah, potentially, Damien Chazelle, it's a tale of outsized ambition and outrageous excess, tracing the rise and fall of multiple characters during an era of unbridled decadence and depravity in early Hollywood, starring Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, and Diego Cavla. So, Dallas, this was a film where I think the trailers have been kind of banging on for a little while now at the multiplexes, but I think it's been hard to escape the discourse around the film and everything to do with it, calling it a flop, calling it awful, baffled at why Damien Chazelle seems to be a success. The discourse for this film was so tiring that I must admit I wasn't too sure how I was going to feel on the other side of a 3-hour, 9-minute movie when I went in to see it on the Friday. It felt like one way or another it was going to be good excess or overindulgence. So what was your kind of expectations going in, and what was your reaction when you saw it?
I tried to go in with no expectations. Yes, there was a lot about it being, what was it, a 3.4 million opening weekend in America on an $80 million budget. So yeah, that's not great by any stretch of the imagination. It's the kind of thing where I feel that that weekend it probably did more in the UK on its opening weekend, comparatively, than it did in the US. So the UK seems to have embraced it a little bit more. I don't know if anyone in Hollywood now wouldn't have been alive back in Hollywood then, but I don't know if maybe it rubbed some people up the wrong way or something. I don't know. But, it is certainly not The Artist or even Singing in the Rain. In terms of looking back at that era of Hollywood, they were very saccharine sweet, I think, compared to this. I was always going to say, I don't think the trailers or whatever wouldn't have even mattered to me. This is the man who made Whiplash and La La Land and the underrated and underseen First Man. I think that's still a great film, and it didn't get the due that it was it should have had. But this, I'm a fan of a near 3-hour long movie starring Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie looking at the underbelly of Hollywood. I love that kind of film. So
you and me both.
Yep. So I was looking forward to it, and I have to say that I enjoyed the hell out of it. We can get into a bit more about, it doesn't completely work. It probably outstays its welcome slightly, but I was all in from the opening party sequence. You kind of, it sets its stall out. No one can sort of go past the first 5 minutes and sort of not realize what kind of movie they're getting when, two men are trying to push a truck holding an elephant up a hill, and then one of them gets covered in elephant shit. It's and quite a lot of it. It is, it's like jackass levels of like, oh my goodness. And then the debauchery of the opening party. It's like, yeah, it's saying, Hollywood was not the the place that it's made to look like in the movies, even though this is technically a movie as well. But yeah, no, I mean, I absolutely bought into what Damien was doing here, and yeah, loved nearly every 186 minute of it.
You and me both. I couldn't have been more in. I think I checked my watch a couple of times, but it was never for like, oh god, this film's dragging. I wish it would wrap up. It was almost just like, right, let me get my bearings. Like I remember doing it once when like the title pops up, so that's like half an hour in.
Oh
so
yeah, I love a movie that drops a title card like 34 minutes in. That always is like an immediate extra half star or something for me. It's like yeah, no, I love that. I love it when that happens. Just in case you'd forgotten what movie you'd come in to see.
Yeah, I remember just looking at it going, okay, we're half an hour sort of down, and I must admit, I thought it was fantastic. I mean, it was a structure I didn't anticipate that. It tells obviously this kind of history of these kind of three characters and the evolution of Hollywood in the process, and yeah, that was all good, but it was more these structures of like these different segments and sort of the structure of how it was all put together. And there's almost that bit where sometimes you come out and you talk about what was your favorite scene, but like with this it was almost like, oh, which part was your favorite, or was there a segment that you particularly enjoyed, whether that was the kind of the use of sound for the first time by sort of Margot Robbie's kind of character and realigning to that, or kind of this big sprawling epic into the sea and sort of the desert, as it were. There was just so many great moments, and it was one of those ones like, this is the stuff that annoys me, where it's like people talk about a movie, oh, it's flopped, oh, it's been a financial disaster, etc., and I'm like, well, it's not my money. I don't particularly care if this guy spent 80 million on this, if you want to call it a vanity project, but he spent it on the money. I mean, Paramount made insane money last year from Top Gun. I would rather see one movie like this make a huge swing. Maybe it misses with the box office, but I watched that movie and I was like, even just in the beginning with all the use of extras, backgrounds, everything like that, I just couldn't believe. I was sitting there watching it going, oh wow, like every bit of a penny of this is on the screen. Whereas you watch some of these kind of larger blockbusters, it's particularly kind of your Marvel ones, you think, okay, it's like 200 odd million, but where's the money been spent in someone? This looks really cheap, and it's been spent on special effect houses, whereas it's just like, wow, like he spent the money and he has made a movie look incredibly epic. I thought he had been fantastic. It was a fantastic use of money in my sights. Whether it was right or wrong for Paramount to spend that money, who cares? They did, and I think the audience can only benefit from it. I wished I'd seen it in IMAX though.
Oh, that would have been an experience indeed. Yeah, I mean, how much, one could argue maybe how much of the budget was maybe Brad Pitt's fee. I mean, he's someone who would probably have carried a fee of somewhere between 10 and 20 million. That could have been quarter of the budget. And actually they even that's sort of something they kind of almost get into in the film itself, about these actors and stuff, and their worth and all that. But yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, the scene where Diego Calva was riding a horse trying to corral all these extras who are like ex-cons and drug addicts and stuff like that. It's like they're all there, whereas some other people may have opted, for CG, and stuff like this. And yeah, it's every penny is up there on the screen. And I think, like you say, I think there are some people who would probably not like this movie. It is a very certain style, but I don't think you can fault the ambition. Some people will fault the execution and how it is, but I mean, I think it's still a film that even if you didn't like it as a whole, like you say, there are moments within it which are just sensational. For me, the entire Hello College sequence, which was the one you sort of referred to, where it's the first time they're recording a sound movie, and all the things that go wrong with that, and PJ Byrne is just a force of nature in that scene. He's just so funny as the guy, the producer, who's trying to keep everything together when everything keeps going wrong. Jean Smart's it's bigger than you speech, when she sort of lays it all out for Brad Pitt's Jack Conrad. in how his time is over. I mean, it's interesting that he opted to the era of Hollywood that Damien Chazelle wanted to explore was the transition from silent movies into talkies, which has been done most famously in Singing in the Rain and The Artist, but how it's weird how closely it resembles Singing in the Rain, but the way that it has taken that, and also it basically hints that this was the story which inspired Singing in the Rain. Because if you know Singing in the Rain, you'll see certain elements pop up about dialect lessons and things like that, and I love you, I love you, I love you, and then towards the end, Diego Calva's character watches Singing in the Rain, and you're like, oh, that's a bit on the nose, but then I kind of appreciate that, and that it's basically saying this is an alternative version of Hollywood where Singing in the Rain was inspired by stuff that really went on in Hollywood, and I really like that. And I mean, and the score, the score. I mean, within like the first 10 minutes, I was like, well, this has to win the best original score Oscar. I mean, there's nothing else that I've heard in the last year that comes close. I mean, up until that point, I would have said Michael Giacchino's score for The Batman was fantastic, but this is on a whole other level, and I've been listening to it pretty much non-stop since. I've listened to it while going out for a run on a Sunday. I've listened to it while trying to write reviews, and it probably doesn't help because I'm getting a bit agitated and stuff like that. But yeah, it is great, and I mean, he's even got black people playing jazz in this one as opposed to white people saving jazz. So he's learning. He's learning.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, it was so well deserved to get like an Oscar nomination for that music score. And what I love about it was, and I almost feel slightly frustrated that it didn't get an editing nomination on top of that, because for me it's almost like it kind of the two don't survive without each other. Just the amount of times that you're just watching so many scenes, like they build to crescendos. It's quite interesting when you're watching it. Where
you've got the obviously there's the party scene, but then there's the cross-cutting between Margot Robbie's first day on a film set and Diego Calva's first day on a film set, and how that keeps going back and forth, and how they also try to make the music diegetic in that it's happening within the scene. So you've got the party, there's the band at the party, so they're actually playing the music there, and then you've got people recording music and stuff like that. It's so well done. I mean, it got nominated for production design as well, obviously, very rewarded on that, but editing wise, I think the editing is superb in this one as well.
Yeah, it just felt like when I was sort of thinking, oh my god, it's not 3, and I was stunned that the editing kind of got missed off. Like, for me to get one, it deserved both of them. It deserved both.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of, I think there was a lot of criticism seemed to come when this one bombed at the box office about, no one seemed to sort of criticize Brad Pitt. He's a star, it doesn't matter, but everyone was saying that, Margot Robbie can't open a movie and stuff like that. I mean, but the movies, that she was in this year, I think, that and Amsterdam, they're kind of an ensemble pieces. But I mean, I thought she was absolutely electric in this. I mean, one of her first sort of lines is, I'm a star, and he's like, oh, what have you been in? Oh, I haven't been in anything yet. Well, you're not really. Well, you either are a star or you aren't. And I mean, in my opinion, I think Wolf of Wall Street, basically one of her very first, US movies, she proved she was a star in that. And I mean, this sort of cements it. I think she's just incredible. The scene where she's having to produce tears on camera at will. I mean, she's great. And obviously you've got the joy of seeing her and Samara Weaving, who look very, very similar, being rivals as well, is also an added bonus.
Yeah, I didn't realise until after the film it was Samantha Weaving. I remember thinking, going, "Oh, that's really cool that they've gone that approach," because they never film both of them together, if I'm correct. Like, they're always bouncing off each other, whereas like, oh yeah, I can see what they're doing here.
Like De Niro and Pacino. It's like it took them forever to be in a film and in the same shot.
Yeah, I just thought that was particularly impressive, and just like, I just enjoyed myself with the whole film, and it reminded me almost of actually The Wolf of Wall Street, where it's one of those ones where how you go with the film is kind of linked in with these kind of characters that you're excited and enthralled by this excess, and you're like, oh my god, this is just nuts, and just like in shock at what you're watching and so on, and you're riding this high wave, and then it just sort of like pulls back, and then you sort of just start to kind of relax. So you kind of you get that feeling of like the high and the crash, and the reality is I think the runtime only can complement sort of those feelings and stuff. And I thought it was a really well put together film, and it's just that little touch where I thought it was very impressive in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've got a couple of cast member crossovers with Wolf of Wall Street, but I think it's the kind of film, like you say, it's very similar in that you want to be a part of this world, even though that you can see and recognize that the people within it are awful people. But there's still something, that pulls you in and wants you want to be part of it. You want to be invited to the parties. You want to be there on set and stuff like that. You want to be a part of this world, even though, as it shows that, it is unforgiving, and it could ultimately consume you and chew you up and spit you out the other side. It's unforgiving and it's merciless.
So what did you think of kind of the lead performances? Obviously, a lot of the attention is going to Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie, but Diogo Calva, a very unknown actor. I remember just sort of looking at his letterbox just before going into the film, going, I wonder if I've seen any of this guy's film. Seen nothing. He, very much kind of a someone picked out of nowhere. What did you think of these leading performers? They cross paths every so often, but very much have their own stories too.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, Brad Pitt is Brad Pitt. He's doing sort of the movie star stick, so yeah, that's fine. Margot Robbie, as I've said, was just sensational. Diego Calva is someone that I don't think I'd ever seen in a movie before, and I was really enamored by him. I thought he had great screen presence. And he's certainly the audience's conduit into this world. He's initially, anyway, the most sort of ordinary and sympathetic character. Obviously, he himself goes on a journey on this, and he's as susceptible to the bright lights of Hollywood as anyone else, and could be argued that he sells his soul as well as everyone else for a shot at the big time and stuff like that. And yeah, it's a very layered performance, and his character actually reminded me of Christian from Moulin Rouge. I think there was a lot of Moulin Rouge in this, and that you could see that he's at this big party, and he falls in love with this woman who he will love for the rest of his life, even though they might not be together, and he's just sort of swept up by the gaudiness and the gaucheness of it all, and he wants to be part of that world no matter the cost and stuff like that. So it did have a very sort of Moulin Rouge vibe to me, which I liked. And I mean, I don't know about you, but there was also certain points in the score where you could hear little riffs from the La La Land score, and I could just imagine our friend Oasis, anytime that happened, sort of doing the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing meme at the screen, going, "Oh my god, it's from La La Land," and stuff like that. So, does that mean that La La Land exists in the same movie universe as Babylon? I presume so.
I think you could be right on here. I mean, obviously, I think it's safe to assume the man does go to the moon in the Babylon universe as well. So, okay, we've maybe got the three of them tied together, and Whiplash. Yeah, that could all happen. I think they're all in the same universe. That could be argued.
Yeah, actually, I guess that brings us to an interesting point, and I don't know. Is it a spoiler? I don't know, but I think there's been a lot of discussion. I'd heard a lot of discussion about the ending of the movie, and it's quite the flex. I think it's fair to say, in that. So if you haven't seen Babylon, just minor spoilers.
Go take 4 hours out of your day to go to the cinema, have some popcorn, come back about 5 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, So Manny, as we sort of hinted, he explained earlier, he at the end of the film he goes to a cinema and watches Singing in the Rain, and is sort of reminiscing on the experiences which he remembers happening in his life. But then it seems to fast forward, and then he's watching all these movies, actually movies technically from the birth of cinema, like Man on the Moon, Train Arriving at the Station, stuff like that, but then goes past the sort of 50s and 60s, and then you get shots from what I could see, sort of Raiders of the Lost Ark, Tron, there was The Matrix, there was Avatar, and stuff like that, and it's like 2001's in there and stuff, and then it's like, wow, okay, was not expecting this, and then everyone's like on Twitter and stuff trying to do it. What does it all mean, And I mean, I don't know. I took it to sort of be that he is looking back on his influence on Hollywood, and what the talkies coming in meant for cinema. And I noticed that a lot of the films that Chazelle had chosen were quite sort of special effect heavy, and how those inventions and innovations in cinema had affected and changed storytelling. And was it what did that make Hollywood better or worse? I think it could be argued sometimes that it could go either way. And then he sort of finds himself back in the cinema. So he's had a glimpse of the future, and it's Hollywood is, it will change, but then it also, as we've seen with many other things, I guess it will also always stay the same as well. I mean, I don't know what you made of the that particular sequence.
Yeah, it was the one part where I just felt like I think I'd enjoy it more on a repeat viewing, but it was just that one moment of like, oh, this feels like it's just going on that little bit too long. I think just that last few minutes and so on. I think it just sort of took me out of it a little bit, where I was just sort of kind of thinking about it, and I was like looking at what was there, maybe what was missing. I like that one. Oh, what was that film there? And you sort of start thinking about so much the choices, and because it was so fast, there's just a lot of things that are going through your mind, and you're almost coming out of being an audience member where you've kind of got very comfortable and settled in for 3 hours, or perhaps on the opposite side, and you're bursting for a pee and you're just desperate for this thing to end by that point. But it was just that one little bit where I was so surprised by that choice that the whole just thing kind of threw me off a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a very divisive moment from what I've read. Also, now just imagining someone who'd nipped out, because it was getting towards the end, and nipped out, they went for a pee and then came back, and then were like getting a glimpse of Avatar and going, am I going into the wrong screen? If I go, which screen am I in? I don't know. And it was like, I was then like trying to work out, I was like, I think it's Paramount that did this, but then it's like, no, but then Avatar's a Fox film, and then Tron would be a Disney. It's like, how did they manage to agree to get all these clips? And I was wondering, it's like, where they, because like Raiders that's a Paramount film, but then there's ones which are not Paramount. It's like, how did they manage to do this? And I'm like, I'm overthinking this, but then maybe that's the point. It's like, I don't know. It's just such a wild thing to put in at the end. I mean, it's like you say, it cannot do anything but take you out of the film for a second, because you are literally watching clips from other films. So you're aware you're watching the movie, but then I guess that's clearly what he was maybe going for. The wild, crazy bastard that he is.
So, and I think we spoke about this before. Like, what do you make of this Damien Chazelle kind of discourse? Like, why has he become such a pariah-like figure for very tedious people online, I think?
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know why people are turning on him. He's got a very interesting style. He pushes boundaries. I mean, let's see. I mean, yeah, Whiplash is a film about not very nice people. I think La La Land, they're both nice together, but and then First Man, potentially not a very sympathetic portrayal of Neil Armstrong. Sort of looking at his family life and stuff like that, and it's about obsession and stuff. So, none of the films, I'd say, apart with the exception of La La Land, are easy films to sort of engage with in terms of character and sort of visual style. Maybe it's just too much for people, but I mean, we need people making films like this. You know, you get with the Marvels and stuff like that. You know, they take, you know, filmmakers who maybe have a bit of flair and style, and then it's sapped away and it ends up, you know, conforming to the brand and whatever. So I think it's good that, you know, someone is willing to take risks and stuff like that. You know, will he get $80 million for his next film? Unlikely, but, you know, I think Netflix always give money to filmmakers. You know, I'm sure he'd still be able to get, you know, 40, 50 million to make a film with Netflix and stuff like that. And, you know, they would, I say they know how to do it. They probably wouldn't know what to do. They'd probably sort of drop it on streaming without any notification and stuff like that, as they do with every other film. But I think, you know, he just has to. Damien, don't change. Keep making the films the way you make them. They will find an audience. You know, we found that with The Northman last year. You know, it had an $80 million budget. You know, didn't do great at the box office initially, but eventually, you know, turned a profit. You know, when it was released on Blu-ray. You know, it seems to be getting a more positive response here in the UK and stuff like that. So I think it's a film which will find its audience. Will there be cult screenings of it? It's stuff like the Prince Charles and things. With the runtime, it might be difficult, but I think there is definitely a Babylon hive out there, and I am a fully signed up card-carrying member of that. Tell me where the next party is. I'll be there.
Oh God! Imagine a secret cinema version would have been.
Good Lord!
That would have been the absolute.
You'd probably need to sign a health and safety waiver and probably get an STD check.
You wouldn't even need to watch the film, for example. No. You could just have it just like blasting away in the background and just
some sort
enjoying
of
the interactive
esque orgy.
So here's a simple question: should it have been one of the 10 that got nominated for Best Picture yesterday?
Me personally, yes. I think if it had been sort of released last year, I would have definitely had it in my top 10. I'm just bringing up the list of 10 to see what I would sub.
I would easily have gotten ahead of Top Gun. I would have easily gotten ahead of Top Gun, Avatar. I haven't seen The Fabelmans yet, so I can't really comment, and I've not seen All Quiet on the Western Front, but I have a feeling Babylon's more my cup of tea.
I haven't seen Women Talking, so I cannot comment on that one.
Women's Talking is very good.
I would have switched out Avatar. I mean, yes, it looks nice. The special effects amazing. Storyline is just not, it's not anything special. I thought All Quiet on the Western Front was great. So, yeah, I would easily have swapped out Avatar for Babylon. Maybe even Triangle of Sadness. I wasn't as enamored with that as everyone else was. So, yes, I think it easily could have been in the top 10. So, yeah. The Oscars, yes, I said that the Oscars did pretty well at the start of the thing. I'm now saying terrible decision. Babylon should have got all the nominations.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that we both agreed on this one, and I guess we've got an interesting mix of films on the horizon. So I'm sure we'll have your post Sundance debrief, and then there's films like Plane to come. We finally will get The Fabelmans as well, for example.
Don't forget Magic Mike: The Last Dance,
and Magic Mike to come as well. And was it Unwelcome, or what's that one called with Colm Meaney? I'm very much looking forward to seeing that one as well. Yeah, so
of course, for the Star Trek connection.
Yeah, everyone loves Colm. So yeah, plenty to look forward to, and plenty we'll be touching on in the coming weeks and months. So thanks everyone for listening, and be wary of the back end of elephants. Bye.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.